want this.
I'll bring you something else, young master.
Who is it? Miss Nia Okafor.
I'm sorry. I poured food on you. I called you fat. You still saved me.
Just become someone who is kind to others.
Is he going to make it? The transplant failed. We need a compatible donor tonight, or we lose him. Test everyone. Family, staff, security. I don't care what it costs. A long silence followed. Then a doctor looked up. There is one possible match. No one expected who it would be. Back to the present. 2 days after the transplant. The VIP hospital wing had never been this quiet. The armed guards were still outside. The doctors were still working. Kang Tae-hyun was still waiting. But the woman everyone wanted to thank had already disappeared. No goodbye. No phone number. No forwarding address. The only thing the nurses remembered was a plus-size young woman wearing an oversized hoodie, quietly leaving through the back entrance with an old backpack over one shoulder. She even thanked the janitor before walking into the rain. Inside the recovery room, 8-year-old Kang Jun slowly opened his eyes. His first words weren't, "Dad." They were, "Where's Miss Nia?" No one answered. Because no one knew. And the terrifying truth was, even Kang Tae-hyun, the man who could make an entire city tremble with a single phone call, couldn't find her. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. 3 months earlier. Nia had been at the Kang mansion 3 months when she stopped counting the ways Kang Jun found to remind her she didn't belong. It started small. A flipped bowl of japchae over her head because Chef Han had made his favorite dish wrong. Sauce sliding down her curls while the dining room staff pretended to study the floor. The cruelty didn't stay in the dining room. He found her brother's birthday card on her nightstand one afternoon, the crayon drawing of a stick figure family, the careful, misspelled "I miss you sister," and tore it into 4 pieces before she found them scattered across her bedroom floor. He dumped her packed lunch in the trash while she watched from across the courtyard, chewing slowly, holding her eyes the entire time. Once, he locked her in the cold pantry for an hour, giggling from the other side of the door while she sat in the dark among sacks of rice, arms wrapped around her knees. He told the younger staff, loud enough for her to hear, "Nobody talks to the fat maid," and for 2 days, nobody did. Each time, Tae-hyun responded. "Write Miss Nia an apology." June tore the paper in half. "Then you'll sit in your room until you're ready to." He sat there for 6 hours, arms crossed, jaw set, refusing to bend. Nia watched a father exhaust every tool he had against a grief he didn't know how to name, and something in her recognized it, not the cruelty, but the helplessness underneath it. A boy who'd lost his mother at 5, hardened into something with only jagged edges left. She never stopped being kind to him. She brought soup to his room even on the nights he'd humiliated her hours earlier. He never said thank you. But the bowl was always empty when she came back. The collapse happened on a Thursday, mid-lunch, June's small hand flying to his chest before his eyes rolled back and he crumpled from his chair. Nia caught him before his skull hit the marble, screaming for help, his body seizing weakly against her. The diagnosis came near midnight, a rare, aggressive bone marrow failure, the kind doctors explained in careful, rehearsed tones because the real numbers were too brutal to say plainly. Tae-hyun tested first. Not a match. Relatives were flown in from 3 countries. Staff were tested one by one. Money was offered in sums that made hardened men pause. None of it produced a match. And through it all, Nia visited after every shift. She read him storybooks in a voice barely above a whisper. She hummed the lullabies her own mother used to hum back in Lagos. She helped him eat when he refused the tray, adjusted his blanket when his eyes finally slid shut. Sometimes he only pretended to sleep, listening to her voice fill the sterile silence of the room, though he'd never have admitted it. Slowly, without either of them naming it, she became the one person he waited for. The call came on a rainy Tuesday. Taehyun was in the waiting room when the doctor walked in, breathless, clipboard pressed to his chest. "We finally found a compatible donor." Everyone stood at once. "Who is it?" The doctor's eyes moved across the room and stopped. A long silence stretched out, heavy enough that someone's chair scraped against the floor. Miss Nia Okafor. Nobody moved. A nurse's clipboard slipped from her hands and clattered against the tile. Another pressed her palm to her mouth. Taehyun opened his lips to speak and found, for the first time in years, that he had no words at all. They found her folding towels in the laundry room, radio playing low beside her. "Miss Okafor." Taehyun's voice wasn't steady. "You're a match. For June." She set the towel down slowly. "Can I see him first?" He led her to the room himself. June lay small against the pillows, tubes taped to skin that had once thrown food at her without a second thought, his teddy bear tucked beneath one arm. Nothing about him looked arrogant now. Nothing looked cruel. He looked like exactly what he was, a frightened child. Nia brushed the hair gently off his forehead. "You're still just a child," she whispered. Then she turned to the doctor. "Prepare the surgery." "Name your price, Miss Okafor," Taehyun said quietly behind her. "A house. An education. Anything. I don't want your money, sir. Everyone wants something. I want him to live." She met his eyes, steady despite everything this house had put her through. "And I'd rather he never knows it was me." Taehyun studied her for a long moment, something shifting behind his composed exterior, the quiet beginning of a debt neither of them yet understood the weight of. "As you wish," he said. "But I won't forget this." By morning, the hospital staff had already settled on the story that would protect her wish, an anonymous donor, matched through the registry, name withheld by request. Only 3 people in the entire building knew the truth. Outside, the rain kept falling, steady and indifferent, already washing away the last ordinary hours Nia Okafor would ever have. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and tell me in the comments, do you think Kang Jun deserves to be forgiven? I'll be reading every single one. The surgery took nearly 6 hours. When Nia woke in the recovery ward, her body felt like it belonged to someone else, heavy, foreign, aching in places she didn't know could ache. And 4 taped to her hand fed something warm and dull into her bloodstream. A nurse checked her vitals with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Rest now, sweetheart. You gave a lot of yourself today." Days blurred together after that. Nia drifted in and out of sleep, her body working slowly to recover from what she'd given it. Even sitting upright for more than a few minutes left her breathless and trembling. She thought about June constantly, wondered if the transplant had taken, if his numbers were climbing, if he was in pain, but she was too weak to do anything but wonder. On the 4th day, when a nurse came to check her dressing, Nia finally found the strength to ask. "Is he going to be all right?" "The little boy." "Kang Jun." The nurse's face softened into a warm smile. "The transplant is working. His numbers are improving every day." Nia closed her eyes, relief spreading through her chest like warmth returning to numb fingers. That was enough. That was all she needed to hear. She never saw him. She was too weak those first days, and by the time her strength began returning, doctors advised against visits. His immune system was still perilously fragile, and even a common cold carried in from outside could undo everything. So she stayed in her own ward, healing quietly, holding on to the nurse's words like a small, steady light. It was nearly 2 weeks before Nia was strong enough to leave the hospital on her own. She packed her few belongings into her old backpack, thanked the doctors and nurses who had cared for her, and made her way slowly down the corridor toward the exit, still moving with the careful, deliberate steps of someone whose body hadn't fully forgiven her yet. She was almost at the doors when she heard the voices. 2 nurses, standing near the nurses' station, unaware she was close enough to hear. "Did you hear?" The donor was one of the household maids from the Kong mansion. I heard she only agreed because the family promised her a fortune. People don't do something like that for free. Not really. Nia stopped walking. The word settled into her chest with a familiar, aching weight, the particular sting of watching your sincerity get rewritten as something transactional, just because it was easier for people to believe that than to believe kindness could exist without a price tag. She didn't correct them. She didn't explain. She simply kept walking, thanked the elderly janitor holding the door for her, and stepped out into the rain, disappearing into the gray Seoul afternoon with nothing but her backpack and an ache that had nothing to do with the surgery. By the time Kang Tae-hyun came looking for her, arriving with a car and an envelope of money he intended to press into her hands no matter how many times she'd already refused it, she was gone. No note. No number. No trace. 3 weeks after the transplant, Kang Jun finally woke fully, alert, clear-eyed, strong enough to sit up and ask questions in a voice that no longer rasped with exhaustion. His father was in the chair beside the bed, as he had been for nearly every hour of the last 3 weeks, jacket long discarded, the lines under his eyes deeper than they'd ever been. Jun's first word wasn't Dad. Where's Miss Nia? Taehyun straightened. She had to leave, Jun. She said she'd come back. Taehyun's throat tightened. She had to go, Jun. Go where? His small hand curled into the blanket. She promised she'd finish the book. She promised. We'll talk about it when you're stronger, Taehyun said gently, though the truth was he didn't yet know how to explain something he barely understood himself. That the woman who'd read Jun bedtime stories every evening for weeks had also been the reason his son was alive, and that she'd disappeared before anyone could properly thank her. For now, he let his son believe she was simply gone. The whole truth would come later, when Jun was strong enough to carry it. Months passed, and Kang Jun changed in ways that surprised everyone who had known him before the illness. He said please and thank you without prompting. He apologized when he was short-tempered, then sat with whoever he'd hurt until things felt mended again. He asked Chef Han to teach him how to make japchae, and cried quietly the first time he got it right, though he never fully explained why. He began reading the same worn storybooks Nia used to read him, alone in his room, tracing his fingers over pages that still seemed to hold the shape of her voice. The hospital's official record listed his donor only as anonymous. Identity protected by request. Only Taehyun, the transplant team, and Nia herself knew otherwise. Jun believed, like everyone else, that a stranger's generosity had saved him, someone he'd never get to meet, never get to thank. It ate at him quietly, month after month. Dad, he said one evening, the two of them sitting together after dinner, the house unusually still. I wish I could thank the person who saved me. Whoever they are. I think about it all the time. That some stranger gave me a piece of themselves and never wanted anything back. Taehyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he rose, walked to his study, and returned with an old photograph, setting it gently on the table between them. Jun looked down. A young woman, plus size, warm brown skin, curly hair pulled into a messy bun, smiling faintly at a camera that clearly made her uncomfortable. Who is this? There was never an anonymous stranger, Jun. Silence stretched across the table. Her name is Nia Okafor. Everything in the room seemed to stop. The memories arrived all at once, merciless and complete. The bowl of noodles sliding down her hair while he laughed. You're so fat. The shattered porcelain, the lie he'd told so easily, watching her nearly lose everything for something he'd done. The birthday card he'd torn to pieces. He remembered the crayon drawing now, the careful misspelled handwriting, and the strange satisfaction he'd felt destroying it. The hour he'd locked her in the cold pantry, giggling at her muffled voice through the door. Nobody talks to the fat maid. And she had given him her bone marrow. She had nearly died so that he could live. Jun sat frozen, the photograph shaking slightly in his hands, and then the tears came. Not the tantrums of his childhood, but something far heavier, the particular grief of understanding, all at once, exactly who you've hurt and exactly how much they still chose to save you anyway. She never told anyone, he whispered. She let everyone believe it was a stranger. Even after everything I did to her. He looked up at his father, eyes red and wide. We have to find her. Dad, please. We have to find her. Taehyun reached across the table and gripped his son's shoulder. We will, he said. I promise you, we will. Kang Taehyun mobilized every resource his empire could offer. Investigators searched employment records, immigration files, transit logs. Contacts across 3 countries called in decade-old favors. Weeks turned into months, each lead dissolving into nothing, a false name, a false face, a trail gone cold in the rain the day she'd walked out of that hospital. June didn't wait passively. He grew kinder with every week that passed, as though becoming a better person was the only apology he could offer in her absence. He volunteered at a shelter near the mansion on weekends. He learned to sit with people's pain instead of turning away from it. I want to be someone she wouldn't be ashamed of saving, he told his father quietly one night, even if we never find her. They found her 7 months later, at a small countryside orphanage 2 hours outside Seoul, volunteering under her own name, needing no disguise because she had never believed anyone would think to look for her in a place built entirely around giving rather than taking. They arrived on a quiet Sunday morning. Nia was crouched in the garden, showing a small girl how to pull weeds without disturbing the roots, when she heard the car doors close. She looked up, certain for a moment that her mind was playing a cruel trick on her. June was out of the car and across the yard before his father had even stepped out. He didn't hug her. He dropped to his knees in the dirt in front of her, shoulders already shaking. I'm sorry, he choked out. I poured food on you. I called you fat. I lied about the plates. I locked you in the pantry. I tore up your brother's card. I told everyone not to talk to you. The words tumbled faster than he could organize them. And you still gave me part of yourself. You almost died for me, and I never even said thank you, because I didn't know. I didn't know it was you until months later, and I... June. He looked up, tears streaking his face. Nia knelt down in front of him, ignoring the dirt soaking into her knees, and wiped his tears away the same gentle way she used to smooth his blanket in that hospital room. I forgive you, she said simply. How? His voice cracked apart. After everything? Because I know what it looks like when a child is hurting so badly they don't have the words for it, she said. It came out sideways. It came out as cruelty. That didn't make it right. But it didn't make you unforgivable either. I want to be different. I promise I'll be kind for the rest of my life, if you'll just... Be kind because it's who you choose to become, she said softly, not because you owe me. You don't have to spend your life paying me back, June. Just become someone who's kind to others. That's the only thank you I need. Taehyun approached slowly and bowed his head to her, not the shallow bow of formality, but something deeper, an acknowledgement of a debt no fortune could repay. Miss Okafor. You saved my son twice. I don't know how a family like mine begins to thank you. Nia glanced back at the orphanage behind her. The sagging roof, the modest garden feeding too many mouths, the children's laughter carrying across the yard despite how little they had. If you want to thank me, she said, help them. Not me. Them. Consider it done, Taehyun said. Whatever they need, for as long as they need it. In the months that followed, the Kang family quietly funded a new roof, a fully stocked kitchen, and a scholarship fund for every child who aged out of the orphanage's care. Given without cameras, without announcements, the same way Nia had always given. Kang Jun visited every weekend he could manage, reading to the younger children the way she once read to him, patient even when they lost interest halfway through a story. And some evenings, he simply sat beside her on the porch steps as the sun went down, saying nothing at all. Because some gratitude runs too deep for words, and some kindness changes a person so completely that all that's left to do is spend the rest of your life trying to become worthy of it. Subscribe to see more of June and Nia's story, and tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change? I read every single one, and I'd love to hear your story.